In April 1941, Nazi Germany shattered Yugoslavia in a matter of days. Out of the ruins emerged a new state, the Independent State of Croatia, ruled by one of the most radical fascist movements in Europe, the Ustaše. Led by Ante Pavelić, the regime promised a pure Croatian nation. What followed was a campaign of terror, mass violence and persecution that shocked even its Axis allies. But what exactly did the Ustaše believe? And how did their radical ideology turn Croatia into one of the most brutal regimes in wartime Europe? Before World War II, Croatia did not exist as a sovereign nation. It was part of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. During the interwar years, there was much discontent with how politics developed. Out of this discontent, extreme movements emerged, and one of these was the ultranationalist movement named Ustaše, the Croatian Revolutionary Movement. This movement was founded by Ante Pavelić, who called himself the Poglavnik, which means leader or can be translated as first and foremost. According to its own mythology, the Ustaše portrayed itself as a secret revolutionary army born out of Croatia's struggle for national liberation. Its members believed they were fighting to free the Croatian nation from the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, where they claimed Croats had been oppressed since 1918. The movement began to take shape around 1930. It grew out of radical student circles and militant youth activists connected to the Croatian Party of Right. Two important figures soon emerged as leaders: nationalist journalist Josip Broz Tito and lawyer-turned-politician Ante Pavelić. Evidence suggests that Pavelić had already been considering the creation of a nationalist underground movement as early as 1928. Ironically, Pavelić had once tried to find a political compromise within Yugoslavia. In 1925, he negotiated with Serbian Prime Minister Nikola Pašić about a possible agreement that would grant Croatia political and cultural autonomy while remaining inside the kingdom, but these negotiations ultimately collapsed. By 1939, some autonomy was granted, by the way, with the Banovina of Croatia, an administrative subdivision within the kingdom. Anyway, events soon pushed Croatian nationalists further towards radicalism. In 1928, the assassination of Croatian political leader Stjepan Radić inside the Yugoslav parliament shocked the country. Shortly afterward, King Alexander I of Yugoslavia abolished parliamentary democracy and imposed a royal dictatorship. For many Croatian separatists, these developments convinced them that peaceful political solutions were no longer possible. From the beginning, the Ustaše aimed to create a greater Croatia that would include both Croatia and Bosnia. Their vision was an ethnically homogeneous state. In their ideology, groups considered foreign, especially the large Serb population, would have to be removed, by force if necessary. At first, anti-Semitism was not central to the movement. In fact, some early supporters included Croatian Jews active in radical nationalist circles. But during the 1930s, the movement increasingly adopted anti-Semitic ideas under the influence of European fascism and Nazism. In 1933, the movement formally outlined its ideology in a document known as the Ustaše Principles. These 17 principles called for the creation of an independent Croatian state and promoted a society based on traditional Catholic rule values, strong patriarchal families, and strict social hierarchy. They also embraced ideas about racial purity and eugenics, reflecting broader extremist trends in Europe at that time. Although the Ustaše drew inspiration from regimes like Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini, their ideology was also heavily influenced by Croatian nationalist thinkers. Intellectuals such as the anthropologist Ivo Pilar and archaeologist Tito Truhelka developed theories about the supposed foreign origins of the Serb population in the region. These ideas helped shape the movement's extreme hostility towards Serbs. Other writers, including historian Milan Šufflay, described Croatia as a western frontier, defending Europe from the Eastern Balkan world represented by Serbia. These nationalist interpretations of history became an important part of Ustaše propaganda. The movement also tried to claim earlier Croatian national figures as ideological predecessors. Among them were the 19th century nationalist politician Ante Pavelić and revolutionary Eugen Kvaternik. However, historians often debate how closely their ideas actually aligned with Ustaše ideology. Soon after forming the movement, Pavelić and many of his followers fled Yugoslavia to avoid arrest by the Yugoslav authorities. They found refuge in several European countries, particularly Italy and Hungary. There, they established training camps where recruits were trained as militant revolutionaries. Pavelić also organized a propaganda center in Berlin, run by young activists. However, the real heart of the movement lay in its paramilitary camps, including one on the Italian island of Lipari. From these bases, the Ustaše leadership planned operations, produced propaganda, and coordinated their activities. Life in the camps was strictly controlled. Recruits lived under military discipline and had to swear an oath of loyalty to Pavelić and the movement. Breaking that oath could mean death. The movement also developed a divide between its members abroad and those who remained inside Croatia. The exiled militants tended to come from working-class backgrounds and were often more radical. Meanwhile, supporters still living in Croatia, sometimes called the home Ustaše, included more students and intellectuals, especially at the University of Zagreb. These groups often clashed over strategy and ideology. Their methods also differed. Activists inside Croatia mainly organized protests and political agitation. The exiled Ustaše, however, embraced terrorism as their primary strategy. Throughout the early 1930s, they carried out bombings and assassinations aimed at destabilizing the Yugoslav state. Many of these attacks targeted government officials and security forces, but civilians were sometimes caught in the violence as well. The campaign created an atmosphere of fear and tension across Yugoslavia. Some militants were even prepared to die for the cause. During a failed uprising in 1932 in the Lika region, one Ustaše fighter detonated a grenade to kill himself, rather than be captured by Yugoslav authorities. I hope you're still enjoying the video. I love to cover the niche topics on this channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time to do it. If you want, you can even support me financially via PayPal, Patreon, a super thanks, or buy me a coffee. Thanks, and let's continue with the episode. So how did a marginalized party, whose leaders were exiled and its members hunted down by the authorities, come to power? Well, that was done by the Germans. Initially, Hitler had no appetite to attack Yugoslavia. He wanted to use the country's rail network to move on Greece and offer terms. Yugoslavia was to become a German ally, but didn't have to commit its forces to the German war effort. Under German pressure, Yugoslavia acquiesced and signed the Tripartite Pact on the 25th of March 1941. But then, on the 27th of March, Serbian military leaders seized power in a military coup in Belgrade. Hitler was outraged and vowed to destroy Yugoslavia. On April 6th, Orthodox Eastern Sunday, Operation 25, known as Operation Punishment, was launched. The Axis invasion of Yugoslavia had begun. The land invasion happened swiftly, as the Yugoslav army was plagued by low morale and desertion and disintegrated quickly. Especially Slovene and Croat soldiers weren't willing to fight and die for a state they detested. On the 10th of April, the Germans entered Zagreb, and Croatia successfully seceded from Yugoslavia. The independence proclamation had been state-managed by the Germans. The borders of the new Croatian state extended over 40% of the former Yugoslav kingdom. It covered most of modern-day Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, as well as some parts of modern-day Serbia and Slovenia. It was called the Independent State of Croatia, NDH. But how independent was the state really? Germany and Italy had divided their own spheres of influence within the area. Germany wanted economic advantages and privileged status for the ethnic Germans living there. The Germans were heavily influenced in the country's economy altogether. From day one, there were German soldiers on the streets of Zagreb, and diplomatic representatives occupied important places. Therefore, the NDH can hardly be called independent. The state officially became a kingdom, with the Italian royal prince Aimone, the 4th Duke of Aosta, on the throne, renamed Tomislav II. Well, on paper, because he never resided there. Ante Pavelić, who at the time of the Croatian independence declaration was still in Italy, became the leader of the NDH. On the 13th of April, he returned to Croatia after 12 years of exile. To Italian journalists, he said the following: "Today's restoration of Croatian independence has its foundation in historical and ethnic factors. The pan-Slavist movement spread throughout the entire world, the belief that we are one people with the Serbs. This is not true, as the Croats are not Slavs according to race, but rather are Croats by their origin and nothing else. Without repeating the known differences in religion and culture, the two nations are differentiated ethnically, even in a somatic sense." So how did the average Croatian view the rise of the NDH under Ante Pavelić? A significant part of the population, generally in towns and particularly in Zagreb, viewed it favorably. The Ustašes had a modicum of popular support in Western Herzegovina and Lika, but virtually nowhere else. However, most people accepted the resurrection of the Croatian state with the feeling that the war had ended quickly and that the worst had been avoided. But in reality, the worst was about to come. Serbs, Jews and Roma, as well as Croatian political opponents, were arrested, and the first killings occurred in May. Confinement in camps started in July. Eventually it got so bad that even the Germans and Italians present in the region were repulsed by it. That does sound odd, right? But it is the truth. The Germans were actually outraged by the Ustaše mass violence. A while ago, I made an elaborate video on that. Click right here to check that one out.